So we're going to move past the total problems where we're multiplying the total amount by how much we were charging and getting some kind of revenue or whatever. We're going to move past that to interest problems. So money deposited in an account is called the principal. So let's say, you take $1,000, you put it in a savings account, that $1,000 is your principal. And then the person invests money in hopes of later getting back the principal plus an additional money called interest. So if you put $1,000 in a savings account, they don't give you $1,000 back. They give you $1,000 plus a certain percentage of interest, right? So the annual simple interest rate is the percentage of the principal that equals the interest earned per year. Now, there's a lot more that goes on with interest, including compounding and compounding continuously, but we're not dealing with that in this particular problem. What we want to deal with, this is going to be more a traditional one. It says a person plans to invest twice as much money in an account at 3% interest as an account at 7% interest. How much should he invest in each account to earn a total of $416 in 1 year? So you might be thinking to yourself, well, why doesn't he just invest it all at 7%? Well, sometimes to get that high of an interest, you have to lock it away so you can't touch it, like in a CD, certificate of deposit. Or sometimes if to get the 7%, you're putting it in things like the stock market, which are much more volatile, meaning it might crash on you and not give you anything, or might, lose all your money. All right, so we're going to use our traditional steps here because this is not the big involved one that has the revenue, that like this one where it said it wanted it as a function. It's not that kind of problem. So it's the more traditional type where we've got the 5 steps. So I'm going to put them in right here. All right, so now let's see, what is X and what is Y? That's our first mission. All right, well, let's look it over again. You're going to invest twice as much money in an account at 3% interest as in an account at 7% annual interest. How much should he invest in each account to earn a total of $416 in 1 year? Well, there it is right there. How much should he invest in each account? That's what you're looking for. That's what you don't know. You have 2 accounts. So this is the amount invested at 3%. And then Y will be the amount invested at 7%, or vice versa. The X and Y order doesn't matter. All right, step 2, we need to make a couple equations here. And this is the hard part. We need to figure out 2 relationships. You have to find 2 separate things going on. Well, they might not be separate, but 2 different things going on that you can write mathematical statements about. Okay, well, we know that there are different interest rates. That's interesting. And then we know we want a total of $416 in 1 year. Cool. Then they also tell us, look, twice as much money in the 3% account than the 5%, or than the 7% account. That's crucial. Twice as much money in 3% as 7%. I'm going to highlight that right there. That's going to give us one of our equations. Hold on, let me make this smaller. The amount in the 3%, that was X for us. That was X for us. Okay. The amount in the 3% equals twice as much as the amount in the 7%. Right? So they say, I'm going to invest twice as much money in blah, 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 3% as in 7%. Right? Now, if you get confused, which it's easy to do on this problem, just think to yourself, okay, look, twice as much money in 3% as 7%. So if I was going to invest $100 in 7%, then it should be $200 in the 3%, right? So if you put $100 in here for Y, which is the 7% amount, do you get $200 for X? Yes. Okay, so like you can double check yourself with like some simple numbers, see if it works out. And it does. So there's that equation. Okay, then you need one more. You have one relationship down. And you're thinking, well, crap, that was the whole first line. Where's my other thing going? Well, the other thing's going to come from the 416, right? So you want it to be equal to 416. Now the question is, how do you get $416 at the end of the year or whatever? So what they do is they take the amount you've invested at 3% and they multiply it. They say, okay, 0.03 times that amount. So if it's $100, you multiply $100 times 0.03. Then they add to it 0.07 times the y. And together, between the 3% interest on the X account and the 7% interest on the Y account, you've got to have $416 total. So you take 3% times the amount of money you invest, right, which would be X, and then 7% times Y, and you've got to get $416 when it's all over with. There's your other relationship. It comes basically out of the interests themselves and the 416, right? The actual interest rates themselves make that. Oopsie. Right here. That's the hardest part, getting these two things set up. You've got to analyze and reanalyze this little paragraph here and get everything out of it you can. You got to bleed it like a stone, right? So the twice as much money business, that's X equals 2Y. The variables themselves are coming out of that green one, right? How much is invested at each amount, right? And then this last one's the hardest one to spot. It's coming from the fact that you've got 416 down here, but 416 isn't going to be X plus Y. It's going to be 3% of X plus 7% of Y. Once you have those two equations, then you just have to solve them, right? And that's not actually that hard, because you have two different algebraic methods at your disposal. You could solve them using elimination or substitution, right? Now the easiest thing here is going to be substitution, because you can see X is already solved for. See how it's X equals 2Y? So that means I could very easily substitute. Instead of putting X, I could put 2Y plus 0.07Y. That's got to be equal to 416. Substituted right there. And then we just got to finish it out. You have equation with just y in it. So you go, okay, that's 0.06y plus 0.07y equals 416. That's 0.13, because 6 and 7 makes 13, right? So 0.13y equals 416. Divide both sides by 0.13. Hold on. There we go. And you will luck out, because this is going to work out to be a whole number. It will not always work like that, but this one did. So yeah, that works. Okay, so that one became a whole number, but it's only one part of the story. You know that the y is 3,200. So what's x? Well, remember, x is equal to 2y. So that means x is equal to 2 times 3,200, which means it's equal to 6,400. Okay, we've solved our equations. Wasn't even too hard. Now we just got to make kind of a complete sense of this. So we will to obtain $416 in interest by the end of the year, we must invest, let's see, $3,200 at, what was that, the 3%? No, that was the 7%. And $6,400 at 3%. I should use the word interest. There you go. And then step 4 is just kind of a check. You just kind of want to look at it and say, hey, does this make sense? I've invested $3,200 at 7%, $6,400 at 3%. I mean, if you want, you could double check those numbers and make sure they work out. You know, you could substitute them into the equations, make sure that they, you know, satisfy both of them, that kind of thing. So, yep. Yeah. The interest rate, or excuse me, the amounts invested make sense, right? Because, I'll put it down, because to obtain $416 with such low rates, we'll have to invest a lot of money, right? It takes a lot of money to make $416 in interest, believe it or not. Okie dokie, we're done with that problem. And I think I'm going to stop right there, because I want to take the entire next video to do the next problem, just because otherwise it can kind of, I won't be able to fit it in the last few minutes of this problem. All right, so we'll stop right there.